In this video, we're going to go over the Check Your Understanding from 4.2c. Researchers would like to design an experiment to compare the effectiveness of 3 different advertisements for a new television series featuring the work of Jane Austen. There are 300 volunteers available for the experiment. Describe a completely randomized design to compare the effectiveness of 3 advertisements. So we are going to want 3 different groups. So I'm going to show you an outline of the experiment. We have the 300 volunteers. This is where we would do our random assignment from the 300 volunteers. So in a sentence, you would write, randomly assign the 300 volunteers to 3 treatment groups. Then you would have to explain how you would do the random assignment. The hat method is always the easiest. So you can put everyone's name into a hat on a same size piece of paper, well mixed. Make sure you say those 2 things, that the pieces of paper are the same size and the pieces of paper are well mixed. Take out 100 names. They will be in group 1 and watch ad 1. Take out another 100 names. They will be in group 2 and they will watch ad 2. Take out the last 100 remaining names will watch ad 3. You will then compare the effectiveness of the advertisements and what proportion were most likely to watch it. You need to describe. You can't just provide the outline on the AP for full credit. So just take that sentence I said out loud and make sure that's similar to the sentence you wrote. Describe a randomized block design for the experiment. So you need to think about blocks that you could create, just some sort of characteristic that you think would, if you separated the volunteers, would decrease the variability in the end. So we're going to do familiar with Jane Austen and not familiar with Jane Austen, because we think that's really going to affect how they would rate the advertisements. So the blocking happens first. So you write the blocking, and we would choose this because we think those familiar with Austen will react very differently to the commercials, the advertisements, than those not familiar with Jane Austen's work. You might have picked different blocks like gender or age, and that's fine as long as you can justify it. So once we choose the blocks ourselves, we have those 2 groups. We don't know the size because we don't know how many are familiar with Austen, so that's okay. You can just describe it proportionally. You then do the random assignment from those who are familiar with Austen into 3 groups. 1/3 of the entirety of those familiar with Jane Austen, and assign the 3 different treatments, the 3 different advertisements. Same thing with the group that are not familiar with Austen, where you randomly assign them to 3 groups, each 1/3 of the size of those not familiar with Austen. They get the 3 advertisements, and then compare the effectiveness of these 6 groups. Why might a randomized block design be preferable? So that's the second one, where we first block it into familiar with Jane Austen and not familiar with Jane Austen, and then do the randomization. And what it's going to do, it minimizes the variability caused by those who are or aren't familiar with Jane Austen. The ads might have different effectiveness based on that.